Okay, it is time for round 6 of the local Interclub Zwift races. We've got the Hare and Hounds this week on the Gotham Grind, and so this is going to be a frantic hour or so of racing. All the categories are in together. Hopefully, we'll get the chance to explain a little bit about the format through the first part of the race, as it's going to be action-packed from early on. The way that this format works is all the categories are racing together as the D group get underway. And the way that it starts is the D group have begun first. They've just started. They're going to have a 7-minute head start on the C group, who then themselves are going to start. They'll be in the blue jerseys. So we've got D group in the yellow jerseys. The blue group starting at 7 minutes in the, which is the C riders. Then a further 3 minutes later, you've got the B group, which will be in green jerseys. And then a further 2 minutes after that, so 12 minutes in total behind this D group that have just begun, will be the A group, and they will be in the red kit. And we've got riders from the local clubs represented across all different groups, so this is a fantastic opportunity for us to take a look at some of the riders in Group D that we've not seen yet. We've got the male and female riders, so Adamson of Battersea C, for example, is one of the female riders who's in amongst this D group, and the way it's going to work is that the points are going to run all the way through from first place, which is going to receive 200 points, down to 1 point for all the riders from 200th place onwards. So it's going to be a real battle. The double drafting rules mean that the groups are even more important, and if any of these D group riders can have a chance of staying away from the fast chasing A group later on in the race, then they're going to need to get themselves in a nice strong group and work hard through this first part of the race until the groups from behind start to make the catch. So it's going to be 37.3 kilometres, which is 4 laps of this Gotham Grind course in New York. The course was originally going to be in Watopia on a flatter course, but I assume it was for the load placed on the number of riders riding on Zwift at the moment that they moved it to this slightly lumpier course, the Gotham Grind, which is going to put a bit of a stretch on some of these riders. So as the course kicks up and down, there's no substantial climbs, but some short, steep climbs, and it is going to test some of the groups, and we're going to really find out who the strongest riders are. So the D group are underway. They've been riding for almost a minute and a half now. As we work our way through, we've got riders from Sultan Sham here, like Moody you see there. Danger here for riders if they end up stuck on their own already in this early stage. Moody's just catching to the back of this main group of D group riders. It's going to be a long ride, because as the faster groups come behind, you've got a chance if you can catch the wheels, get in a big group and tow you along. But the real test is going to be if you get solo riders that are working hard on their own, that trying to catch onto those fast groups is going to be a real big ask. So here we go. This little bit of a kick of a climb here is stretching this group out. You can see on the map in the top corner that the front riders are heading fast on this descent already. So riders like Rid out here and Moody, who's a little bit further behind, are going to have to kind of grab the wheels of this group and try and get through this difficult first part of the race to then see themselves surviving further into the event. So Clark from PDQ is here. Just started this descent and then back onto the flat. So again, short climbs, nothing super long, but there is going to be steep gradients and short kicks that are going to really test these riders. So these D group riders, even if you get in a small group, about 6 or so riders, as Clark and a rider from PDQ and Moody and so on are, that's a good starting point, something to work with. You've got Cross from Portishead, Bourne from Portishead, and then Lexi Rose from Battersea C. There's a little bit further forward, and you see these small groups are forming, and these groups just have to ride at this consistently hot tempo. It's probably going to be just over an hour's racing for a lot of these D group riders, so they can't afford to overcommit this early on. Go to the very front here, so you've got Wilkes from Setonia, putting out 4.7 watts per kilo. So the other thing, of course, that if you've got D group riders that might be new to racing on Zwift and they might be in the wrong category, so it might look like a fantastic advantage for them here if you've got riders that can put out some really strong power outputs in this group. This front little group of 4 riders that have already broken away from, they've got 25 seconds, 30 seconds lead over the main bulk of the D group riders. They're a factor now, but actually if you've got a rider that's riding consistently above 4 or 5 watts per kilo and they're in D group, there's a good chance we might see a lot of disqualifications today. So we'll keep an eye on those riders at the front, Wilkes in that group of 4, but as we look further back, this group with Mac, Rose and Boonen, for example, looks like that's going to form the main chunk of the D group riders here, and if they can keep this group of, it looks like about 20-30 riders together, they should be able to tick along at a good old pace that will make it hard for those chasing C, B and A group riders to make the catch. So this is potentially where a lot of the action would be. That's working on the assumption that if Wilkes can sustain that front group of 4 who have broken away by about 30 seconds, if they can sustain this 4 watts per kilo pace, they'll probably get the chop, even if they do manage to stay away from the main groups chasing behind. So you've got Rose in this group, you've got a couple of riders from Portishead as well. And again, as we jump forward, it's 34 seconds now towards this group of 4 riders with Wilkes from Satonia, and then you've got a Portuguese rider, an Irish rider, and a French rider. But look, if you look, a vast majority of these 4 are all holding power outputs above the D group limits. So be interesting to see whether they have started strong and will fade, or if they do sustain this pace, they might find themselves in difficulty with the DQs later on. They've got 45 seconds advantage already on this group, with Rose sitting pretty near the front there, Mac from Portsmouth North End down on the south coast, and I saw a couple of Portishead riders in this group as well. One of the ZESP riders that we raced with in the A and B group on Tuesday night. Some of the local race organisers were wondering that the Spanish riders must have been wondering why all of a sudden nearly 200 Brits showed up in their race, and whether they were wondering whether something was afoot. So 5 minutes gone already, so it's going to be 2 minutes until the C group get underway. We've got this small group here again with 2 riders from SAS, Ridout and Moody, and then Clark from PDQ, as well as another rider from PDQ towards the back of this group. So this is a nice little group of riders from the Bristol Bath area that's formed, and if they can keep on working together, keep this group going along, they go 50 kilometres an hour on this slight downhill section. It will be a long, hard chase for the A group in particular, and the B and C group riders behind as well. And one thing that we've seen when we've done handicap pursuit races in the past, and races like Odd Down, is that it does take a lot of trust and faith for those riders that are further back, because it can seem like 12 minutes, it can almost seem like an insurmountable chase, and actually if you panic and chase too hard, go out too hard too early, yes, you can very quickly start to close that gap. But if the D group riders are able to sustain a constant pace, this constant rhythm, then actually if the A group riders go out strong but end up stalling, or the group splinters and they end up with small groups of riders trying to chase larger groups, actually it can become very, very difficult to chase that gap down. So this delicate balance, if you've got riders on the line like Brown here from PDQ, it's going to be a big ask here, because he's got 8-9 seconds to the group in front, and then he's only got small groups behind. Donahue from PDQ is about 20 seconds back. With this long to go in the race, perhaps the best move is to sit up, get in one of those groups that might be able to tow you along and save that energy. So whilst you've got to ride aggressively, you've got to chase those riders ahead or hold them off if you're in front like one of these D group riders. It is about doing that as efficiently as possible, because if you end up on your own or in a small group like Cox from PDQ, Salt and Sham here, it is a long, long ride, and as the fast groups come, with the speed differential might make it very difficult for some of these D riders to jump in. But they've got lots of opportunities, lots of groups will be coming from behind for the whole of the hour of the race. So let's see how they go, as the C group riders are just having their last few seconds of countdown, and they will be underway. As you can see these groups just forming and breaking up. We've got some main chunks here. We're looking back to the start. This is actually the B group just there. It's going to be tricky for me to keep track of what is going on. We're going to have groups all over the road. It's going to be chaotic. And now as the C group riders start, the D group will feel them breathing down their neck. So we'll be able to keep track of how the gaps change and whether they're getting closer or whether these D group riders are holding the lead. The gaps will be indicated on that front group of 4 though, so they are already probably coming up to a minute or so ahead of this main group. Lexi Rose in this group, just starting to let a little gap. This is the steepest climb of the course. It hits 10%, it's only short, but it is steep enough that it will stretch the group. And if you can't accelerate over the top, so Rose here, for example, only let a 1-2 second gap go, but as you can see, as the group accelerate onto the flat, Rose can suddenly end up getting left a little bit behind. Boonen from AO403 is just behind her, but Bourne from Portishead and Mac from Portsmouth North End, as well as Cross, are in this front group still of D group riders. And again, this looks like this is the main chunk of riders that those A group are going to have to try and pursue, as well as the B and C if they can hang on if and when the A group catch them. So 8 minutes have gone so far. There's going to be another 2 minutes until the B group start, and then a further 2 minutes after that before the A group riders start. So shortly all the riders will be on the road. We've covered 6.2 kilometres already for this front group of D riders with Wilkes in there. They've actually come down to 3 riders now, as Russo, the Portuguese riders, dropped off there. Over 90 seconds, 1 minute and 38 seconds in front of that big group, the front main group of D group riders, which has got Cross from Portishead. I believe it was a second Portishead rider was in that group as well. Here is Cross ticking along at about 200 watts, give or take, 240 little jumps up there. You see this is a rolling course, so you'll have spikes in power. It's not going to be quite as even effort as we've been used to. Max in here, and Bourne is the other Portishead rider, and here's Lexi Rose is sitting about 15 seconds behind now, so she's probably going to sit up. Got Boonen from A403, and then another Salt and Sham rider, Moody, coming along not far behind her. So if she's able to get in a group of those riders and keep that work going, that's going to give her the best chance of progressing through this race. just under a minute until the B group riders are on the road. We're still going to follow these D group riders. I'm wary of clicking out of the race, and if I try and move too much, we're going to end up losing track of what's going on. So we'll sit near the front of this race with this big group of D riders as much as possible. We'll flick back and see how the chasing packs are getting on, and then if and when the A group or B group riders start to catch these front riders, we'll pick up the front of the race with them as well. So you've got three riders from the local clubs in this group. Mac is just going off the back a little bit, so it's splintering still. So it's important here, you might have to make a big effort, a short surge to get back into the back of this group, because again, as we've seen with Rose, who's now actually gone straight back behind riders like Boonen, if you go out the back of the group very quickly, you can find yourself going backwards. And it does look like Mac here from Portsmouth then has missed that split, so he will be heading backwards. Bourne is sitting not far behind him as well, so we've actually gone down to just a single rider in this front group, which looks like it is. We've got Bourne is out the back, Rose is further back. One rider from Portishead survives in that front group. As we look further back through the D groups, here's Moody. We saw him earlier on. He's ended up making a nice solid group here. Chris Broad-Drake from Swindon, Timekeeper from CTT is up in this group, riding strong. And then you've got Adamson from Bath CC is just off the back of this group with Clark in another small group. You can see them just there. So they might, if they can make the junction, these two groups can form. These three riders can get on the back of that big group. That will help to bolster the strength of this D group, as the B group riders are now 30 seconds into the race. So the riders are starting to charge behind. As we've covered, we're coming up to with 6.5k for these riders. The gap back from the very front of this group, so that group of three riders, is at 6:35, so it's actually holding fairly steady back to the C group riders, and there is now about a 3-minute gap back from the C group to the B group. As we try and find the start of the race, you see there's riders all over. Who have we got here? We've got C group in blue. So I managed to find roughly what I was looking for. So into the C group, we've got this fast-moving group here. They got out hard. In here is Hunt of Bath CC, just tagged towards the back of this group. So this is the first part of the chase. You've got Hunt from Bath CC, Pilato, apologies, I'm going to butcher a few surnames, I'm sure, from Bournemouth Jubilee Wheelers. And so they look like they are the best placed of the C group riders as they begin their pursuit. They've covered 4 kilometres. So with the leaders ticking along probably close to 8-9 kilometres, you can see there's already a substantial gap, and these guys will start to chew into that as we get near to the point where we're going to have the final group on the road, which will be the A group as well, starting now. So all the riders, 5 minutes gone for the C group. We are racing with everyone. So that A group inevitably will start really fast. Here's Gordon Richardson of Portsmouth North End. His teammate Mac further forward has just got out the back of his group. Gordon Richardson trying to hang on to the back of this C group here. Cattry from Freeman Disco Wheelers has been one of the standout performers in C group in the first few races. He's sitting just ahead of Richardson, 7 seconds ahead in that group. So here's Richardson. He's got Irish rider here just in front of him. He might just be able to turn across to that group. And then further back, Goldswain from Bristol Road Club. Raced throughout the winter at Odd Down in the Winter Series. So you see Richardson has been reeled in and he's picked up by this group containing Goldswain, and this looks like this is the next race. You actually see there's a large chunk of the C group riders just behind. So you've got that front group which had the pair of riders in it, and now this actually looks like this is the main chunk of C group riders. Tim Cummings from Salt and Sham in this group as well. So as we said, riders from the local clubs spread all the way through this race, and there will be riders all over the road, and it's going to get chaotic. There's going to be people chasing, people getting chased, and it will be full commitment all the way to the finish as we progress through. Each lap is about 10 kilometres long, just under 10 kilometres long. So the leaders will be heading onto probably the start of their second lap shortly. This group about halfway around the lap as we hit this steep climb again here. So this is that steep climb we said important. So Cattry's just gone out the back of this front group. For Freeman District Wheelers, and you see again, just as we saw earlier on with Lexi Rose, as you go over the crest of this little climb, it's the front of the group accelerates and the back riders are still climbing, and it can make it stretch that group out. Pilato from Bournemouth Jubilee Wheelers and Hunt are still well in this group, so they look like they're very well placed early on, as we've got a couple of riders just slipping off the front of this C group. So they are chasing hard, and again putting out some big numbers in it. We might see some more riders disqualified, so this will go through all the groups. If they've got riders in Group D, Group C and Group B who are riding hard to make this chase, they might suddenly find themselves tripping over that power threshold. Here's Hunt, so look how strung out this group is. The pace is really high and the impetus of those front couple of riders, and this will do no harm for their chances of catching the D group potentially, but again they've got to think both ahead and behind, and if you've got chasing riders coming on strong and they overcommit in this early part of the race, this C group, we might end up stuck with catching the D group, but then not enough in the gas, not enough in the tank, not enough gas in the tank when they get caught by the faster riders behind, or if they get caught by the faster riders behind. So here's Goldswain's group, again strung out as well as they make that descent, but you see there's, on the map there's a lot of C group riders here, so actually it's one long line, Goldswain sitting quite near the front of this little cluster of riders with a gap just in front. Riders moving by, but if you've got riders moving around you, that's all okay, because you can constantly pick up that slipstream as some riders move past, as long as you're really aware and careful that if a gap opens in front of you, you're ready to jump across it. So this C group often makes the largest group of riders. Look how long and stretched out that line is. Often C group is the largest single category in these races, and so this group has a good chance of pulling some large, efficient bunches together that might just be able to make it life difficult for the chasing groups behind. You see Goldswain is in this group of probably about kind of 15-20 riders or so, a couple just tagging on the back there trying to catch the pace, and again not far in front to the next group on the road as well. So as we look forward, here's the group. Catry has ended up in this group here, again about the same size, about 15-20 riders, and Hunt is 30 seconds up the road now from Bassey C with Palazzo of Bournemouth Jubilee Wheeler. So that pair have managed to make that front group of C riders. They seem to be moving on strong. Catry is ticking along nicely in this chasing group of C riders, and then further back you've got the riders who are in that large kind of groups very close together, groups 3 and 4. So this is exactly where you want to be. If you're a C group rider, you're tucked in a nice group, moving along well, saving your energy as best you can whilst travelling fast. And again, that's what this all comes down to, is that if you overcommit, if you try and chase groups down on your own, you're burning matches that you need when the really kind of fast groups might start coming into play. But if you end up trying to follow wheels too much and gaps open up, suddenly the faster C group riders are stronger, the powerhouses, the engine room of the group might suddenly end up the road and you're ending up working on your own. So you see those 3 groups all riding pretty close together. You've got this group here with Catry and then 2 just behind, and if they could come together, actually suddenly you might have 50-60 riders that were in a very strong position to ride hard and try and hold off the chasers. The gap to Hunt's group is coming down slightly, down to 26 seconds, and they've actually got a small group of C group riders that have gone up ahead. We've got the first couple of D group riders starting to appear on the list now. So these are the riders that went out the back quite early on, and they were struggling the pace early. And now as the C group riders come, is Donahue from PDQ, Cox, again we saw them, Brown, they ended up on their own early on. They weren't able to get the group when there's the D riders all together. Now as the C group riders come fast, it's going to be tricky for these riders to be able to jump in. They might be able to. A couple of riders going off-road there. As we look forward, here we are, Daniels from Portsmouth, Portishead Tri. Got himself in a small group here with a rider for PDQ. So again, these guys moving along nicely. Not long now until the C group riders will start to bear down upon them, and so they might have to consider saving a little bit of energy to make that jump. If you can get up to speed and catch the slipstream of those groups coming by, that's going to give you a very good chance. If you end up getting caught on a hill or on a harder section of the course, that's where the real problems might occur. So here's this group here as we look forward again. There's a couple of little pairs, 1s and 2s and riders ahead, and again, if these guys were compiled into one group, that's what would give them the real opportunity to put the chasers under pressure. 10 kilometres gone, so we're over a quarter of the way through. We're on our second lap of 4, so time is ticking by, and it will be difficult for those chasing groups. There's a long gap to close. There is still a long way to go though. As we look further back, Baker's about 26 seconds behind this group. Here's Mack and Ridout, some of the riders that were in that front group and just went out the back earlier. Adamson from Bassey C, she's riding really well here. Got the group Boonen from A403, and then you've got Bourne from Portishead is in this group. Lexi Rose just ahead. Moody as well. So these were riders that we saw managed to make that first few minutes in the front group, got them far enough up this field that even if they dropped back, there were groups of riders that were ready to be involved. So Rose was in that front group on the climb, ended up dropping back a little bit, but was picked up by a group with Boone and Bourne, and is now moving along nicely and it was the front of the race. Broad Drake is there. Cross, one of the furthest forward riders from the local clubs, sitting in this big group of D group riders from Portishead, looking in a very, very good position to end up packing an absolute hatful of points, and this is a real opportunity for some of these D group riders to pull a few scalps with this staggered start. There are lots of points on offer, and if you can ride efficiently, you can get yourself in the mix at the front of these D groups through this first part of the race. Actually, you can hold on a long time, because not only have we had D group riders struggling ending up stuck on their own early on. The same will be true further back. A group riders, B group riders, if they get in difficulty early on with their group of riders, yes, they might be able to catch lots of the groups in front of them, but if they've gone far out the back, it's going to take them such a long time, they're going to be chasing on their own, that actually these D group riders that have managed to get in a group are probably going to be in a very good position to hold off a large number of A group, B group and C group riders that have struggled with that early pace. It's now over 2 minutes to that very front group with Wilkes of Satonia. Cross looks like this is the main chasing pack now. So this is, if we work on the assumption that if Wilkes' group are holding that pace, there's a good chance they may end up with a DQ. We've got this is the group that I think we're going to see some real standout kind of surprise performances potentially from in the finish. And Cross from Portishead looks like he is the best placed rider at the moment to be the rider to make that shock result. So Cross from Portishead ticking along, 2.6, 2.7 watts per kilo, little drops of 2.4. This is an efficient group to be in. It's about the right size to keep on moving fast. And with the lead that these D group riders had at the beginning, they're in a good position, assuming they don't also end up with the dangerous DQ when the results come in. They're in a very good position to end up claiming the scalps of quite a lot of the riders chasing behind. 20 minutes gone, so like I said, probably just over an hour's racing for these D group riders, just under an hour for the riders that started a little bit later probably. So we're probably about a third of the way through. Back to this C group with Hunt 10 kilometres in, so they're just over a quarter of the way through. Pilato and Hunt. This group has shrunk. We've ended up with quite a small group here for these C group riders. So that big group that we saw these guys racing in earlier has splintered as they catch Cox from PDQ. He started with the D group, and Brown from PDQ as well is about to be reeled in by a few more of the C group riders, by Hunt from Bath and Plateau of Bournemouth Jubilee Wheelers. And again, you can see the efforts that these individual riders have made. It makes it very difficult as these C group riders coming in. It would take a huge jump, a huge effort to be able to catch the wheels of these fast riders. So Hunt and Plateau working hard. They're in this small group. There's not many C group riders in front of them. There's a couple of riders about one rider about 20 seconds ahead, one about 10 seconds ahead. So those riders have jumped away solo, but you've got this little group, and if they can continue working together, maybe pick up a couple of D riders that have saved their legs as they've been caught, then we might end up with a really hard-working fast group here that will start to again persevere ahead and make it difficult for the chasing riders behind. Unknown thoughts minds casting back to what might be going on behind in the chase. We will pick those riders up as they start to loom into our rearview mirror. At the moment, all the focus is on these front few riders that have started this race well from Group C and Group D. Here's Catry. Ended up in a big group actually here as well. It looks like we might have Brown from PDQ is currently in this group as well. And then a little bit further back we've got Stimson from Salt and Sham, as well as Alan from Bristol Road Club, and a rider from Peace Fit Racing. Tim Cummins, who we saw earlier, is in this group. So again, some big C group riders, not far apart in the context of this race. A few seconds gap between these two groups is no major problem, because as the faster groups come through, this is going to shuffle the pack once again, so to speak. So Alan from Bristol Road Club, Cummins, Stimson, very well placed here. They can keep on moving along in this group, keep ticking along well. Ellsworthy, if Porter said, they're in a really great position that actually, even if that group of C group riders that are probably sitting about kind of 20 seconds ahead of them, it's when the A and B group riders come through that this group will pick up the slipstream first, might suddenly get dragged across, and even if they don't make it all the way across, they might nibble into that gap, make 20 seconds into a 5 or 6 second gap that will be much more bridgeable. So these riders, again, more riders to watch that started this race well, coming up to 12 kilometres done. So it won't be long until they hit that climb we mentioned. Not long, but double-digit percentages. And a big group like this, again, very dangerous. You've got to be focusing. Thompson in this group, Smith from Paul Wheelers, Chappers from Salt and Sham. These riders are sitting further back in this group as we hit this short little climb with double-digit percentages. That's where if you're sitting towards the back, that elastic band can open up and put those riders behind suddenly find themselves on their own trying to chase back on. Again, lots of the C group riders from the local clubs in this group. So this looks like it's the main chunk. We had a group ahead that had a couple of riders in, and then they've got a large number of riders here. As we drop a little bit further back, we've got, again, Cox that we saw earlier, and then Tom Buxton. He once, when I was hit by a car, he scooped up my bike in the back of the van and looked after it for me. So Trowbridge CC rider there, along with Gordon Richardson we saw earlier from Portsmouth North End, Bradley from Bristol South. So again, riders in almost every group from local. Dauncey from Pack Tri is in here. So all the way through, these A group riders will be picking up riders if they catch, but these riders have all got opportunity to grab the wheel of the likes of Budge, Ashcroft, or John Russell, some of the riders we've seen at the very front of the races in the series, and these riders are in a position to try and capitalise on a good start that they made, got in a group, and as the catch made, will they have the legs to jump in with a double slipstream, double draft effect to try and hold on with the fast groups as they chase. Gap is ticking down. We're now sitting in a position where actually the A group are more or less caught the front of the B group. So the front of A is pretty much on the tails of the front of the B group. Still a substantial gap from the front of C to the chasing B group, and therefore the chasing A group. This group here is sitting a little bit way down within C. You've got Hughes from Saint-Cham. We saw Furtok. Not Furtok. Leo Taylor, Clevedon District Road Club just there as well. And Gilles from Pack Tri. So again, this group a little bit further down. Behind that group with Richardson and Cummins in it. Looking at this group again, substantial size group, ticking along nicely, working well together. Another Portishead rider towards the back of the group, and Mottershead from Portsmouth North End, Helen Coleman, Arvid and VC Walcott. So again, this is one more group for the back, about 20 seconds. You see these 20-second gaps. In a pure C group race, those gaps would be very, very difficult to close, but with the chasing riders coming on fast behind, if you've got the legs to jump across, those groups can help close these small gaps quite quickly. So Richard A, Portishead, and Philly Gaisford. So again, trouble here though, she's got out the back of the group 2-3 seconds, group with Helen Coleman in it, and actually here come the B riders. So Gaisford, she went out the back of that group of C riders just as the leading B riders came through, and again, came through fast. Can she grab the back? Franklin from Bristol RC trying to grab, is it sitting towards the back of the group? Can Gaisford be one of the riders to just jump on the back of this group and get towed along? Franklin from Bristol RC sitting right at the front of B group. So again, another rider sitting at the front of his group in a good position in a fast group, looking like he might be someone that will be able to pick up some really good points as this race goes on. So here they go, scything through these C groups. So this is where you see the real speed of some of these chasing groups. Here's the B riders. So this is the very front of the B race now. We can see on the charts that A group are not far behind. In fact, if you look at the bottom, here comes the very first A group riders. So this B group are about to be joined by the fastest A rider. We're about half distance approaching, and already A and B are starting to mix. We've got C groups and D groups a little further ahead still, so the catch is not completely made. The job is not done by the chasers. But now is where we really find which groups have been working efficiently and who's got the legs to take this race all the way to the finish. So here's Franklin, currently sitting very, very pretty amongst the local riders in this fast B group. As they start to catch these big groups of C riders, you'll get some C riders mixed in. And then as we look further forward, riders like Gilles, Taylor, Hughes, they've got a few minutes maybe, or for even seconds until that B group comes, and then their race changes completely. At the moment, it's about being careful sitting in this group, but as that B group starts to home into view, it's spotting that opportunity, being ready to make that big effort to try and jump and try and grab the slipstream of that group as they move on ahead. A couple of names you've not seen, like Rich Franklin, Saint-Cham, Gooding from Saint-Cham. So a couple of riders from Saint-Cham 30 seconds ahead of this group. In the group with Richardson now as well. So Richardson's in here, and this was the group that had Cummings from Saint-Cham. So a lot of Saint-Cham riders in and around the race here. Brooks from PDQ is in this this part of the race as well. And again, as with the group behind's about 30 seconds behind them. So they've got a couple of minutes as we hit this steep climb. As we said, this is a crucial part of the circuit for Franklin going past the rider. But is he sitting too far back in this group, and is he going to find the pace challenging? Here we go. Richardson's a little bit further ahead. Bradley from Bristol South. So we move up this climb. Good news for this group, they've over this climb. This is a really dangerous spot to be caught. So you see these D group riders that have been caught by this group of C riders. As the group goes up that steep climb, it's a very difficult section of the course to try and survive. Copeman from Trowbridge CC is in this group as well. And if this group have made it over this climb now, just before, well, presumably if a minute or so, a couple of minutes before they get caught by the group of B riders, that's going to give them a much better chance of grabbing onto the wheels as they move forward. Copeman from Trowbridge CC, this group stringing out on this little descent. Brooks is just ahead of them. Dauncey from Pack Tri. Gordon Richardson dropped a few seconds on the back, 3 seconds. That's where you start to worry, because those 3 seconds mean that you're pushing the wind, there's no slipstream effect, and with a very small group here with Gooding getting back to the Bradley group, it's possible, but then they've got to catch the Copeland group, and there's riders in front of them as well. So everyone is chasing hard here as we hit that next little ramp, ups and down. This little roller coaster as the B riders home into view again, 10 seconds down on Richardson at the moment. So you've got to have your wits about you. There's a lot going on. You've got to be able to look at Rich Franklin, He's only a few seconds ahead. Will he have the wherewithal to notice, to spot that those groups are coming up fast? Broomfield from Sotsham, all these riders now, this is a really crucial moment in the race for them as we go coming up approach the halfway distance. If they can make a big effort here, if they can get themselves in a really good position, they've got a real opportunity. Smith from Paul Wheeler's on his own, so he has to decide, is he going to commit to this effort? It's almost 30 seconds back to the next group and almost 30 seconds ahead. A couple of riders, but then 30 seconds to the next big group, so he's ended up stuck in the gap, and that's a very, very dangerous place to be as this race starts to hot up as those B group riders start to come into play. Looking forward again, Goldswain, Cummings and Chappers are in this group, so riders, again, this group's moving along fast, nice big rider, Peace Fit racing rider, Katie I believe it is also in this group, so she's sitting far forward, she's one of the furthest placed forward female riders. We have those couple of riders from D group, Lexi Rose, one of them from Bath CC, that were well placed towards the front. Baker from Salt and Sham, the D group riders, he's ended up off the course somehow, something's gone wrong there. Catry from Froome Distant Wheelers, we saw him sitting quite near the front of C group earlier, so there's not many C group riders sitting far in front of that B group now. We had that front group, and then Catry ended up a short way off the back of it. So as these B group riders come through, we're now looking close towards the front of C group, which means it would only be the very front part of D group. And again, like we said, we've got to caveat all this by if riders have put themselves in a group too far forward and they end up pushing out too much power, it doesn't matter if they get caught or not, they're going to be DQ'd. So we've got Catry's group, C group, we've got some D group riders just sitting in front, one of the riders from PDQ coaching just here. As we look further forward, here's Pilato, and again, one of the riders we knew was near the front of C group, and we've not moved much further forward from that chasing group of Bs that we saw before. So these blue jerseyed C group riders, crucial part of the race as the catch starts to come. And Pilato, Catry, and then there was one other C group rider that we saw earlier from one of the local clubs in a very good position. Here it is, Hunt from Bath CC, in a very good position to be to make the most of this B group coming through to try and take them even further forward in this race. We also saw a hint of those first few A group riders, so not only are we looking out for the green jerseys of B, if we start to see those red A group jersey riders, then we know that we're at the very, very front and very sharp end of this race. So Hunt from Bath CC, the furthest forward C group riders saw. We've got Salt and Sham rider not fired from D group, and so these C group might provide a lifeline for him as we sweep through more D group riders. And there's going to be riders chopping and changing position all the way through the rest of this race now. There's going to be groups all over the road, and it's about maximising what you can, getting the most out of the groups you're chasing, and keeping the effort going, because it might get confusing. You might not even be sure where you are in the race anymore, and suddenly you might give up the ghost, but you were sitting well in front of a large chunk of riders. So a rider like Clark here, riding on his own from PDQ, might be starting to doubt whether it's worth pursuing the effort, but he's still sitting in front of most of the C group riders and almost all of the A and B group. Here's Lexi Rose, same position, riding on her own. Here's Bourne from Portishead. He's ended up still in this group with Adamson and Bath CC. These riders have got an impetus to keep them going, but riders that have ended up on their own, like Rose further back, they've got to keep the effort going because there's lots of riders that are sitting further back. Moody, Salt and Sham, Chris Broad Drake are in this group quite near the front of D as we work our way forward. So they are still a few minutes away from the catch being made by that B group. And as we look forward, there's again more climbing on this circuit. Short climb, Chris Broad Drake from Swindon Road Club climbing well in the front of this group, putting in a bit of a dig, putting maybe a bit of pressure on a couple of riders further back in the group, and if you can keep the pace going over the top of the climb, might shrink this group down even that little bit further. Moody from Salt and Sham, tucked in the wheels, about 20 seconds in front of the group with Adamson. So a little bit further back in this group is Bourne from Portishead as well. So there goes some of the C group riders that have caught this D group. Boonen from A403, Lexi Rose, now mixed in amongst some of the C group riders. So they've got to try and find a group that they can get in the wheels of and try and persevere there. Clark's just about to be caught. Group of Spanish riders of C group, and you see Clark, if he's got the wherewithal to jump in, he might just be able to get swept along. But again, that group came by just a little bit too fast. Here comes Hunt's group, another opportunity, and there's going to be chance after chance after chance with these riders at the front of the race now as we go coming up to 20 kilometres for Hunt from Bath CC. So over half distance, we're onto our third lap of 4. Pilato of Bournemouth Jubilee Wheelers, not far behind Hunt, so still sitting near the very front of C group. And again, there'll be opportunities for these riders. There's almost constantly going to be groups coming from behind as B and then A start to sweep through. And if they can keep on making those digs, keep on grabbing groups, even for a few seconds as it drags them further forward. That's going to help move them forward. Is that the first A group rider, Pearson, that we can see appearing in the list? Daniels from Pack Tri. Here's a C group, Cattry's C group, Fruitman District Wheelers rider. Again, been sitting pretty just off that front group of C group riders. But again, moving along nicely, still yet to be caught by the front of B or A group. We don't know who's coming up first. Here's Cummings' group, also in the group with Cattry. And Katie from Peace Fit Racing, also tucked in here. So these guys moving along well. These are 10 seconds behind Cattry's group, so this is the next group behind, Cummings and Katie. And then again, another group 10 seconds behind. Group after group after group. Chappers is in that further group. This is a small little group. And then again, another 10-second gap back to Stimpson, Thompson's group. And these groups having to work together. This rolling course has splintered these groups more than I expected, actually. I thought with the extra draft applied that actually the slipstream effect would keep these groups of C and B and D group riders together, which gives them a good chance of holding off the A's. But these rolling hills done a lot of damage. Nick Robinson, slightly larger group here. So sitting pretty. PDQ rider 3 seconds off the back of this. The Bristol South rider Bolton, first of the Bs. So we're seeing the B riders, and it's a Bristol South rider that is leading them across, or was leading them a short while ago. So here we go. Group of C riders, and then only 7 or 8 seconds behind, about 5 or 6 seconds now. They're coming up fast. Bolton and Riggs of Bike Strong KTM. So a couple of the local riders sitting right at the very front of B now. As we've got A, B, C and D all in the same part of the road. So this is where the catch has been made. The race has been going for almost half an hour. We're over half distance, and now is where things start to flip in the head. We've had D riders in the front up to this point leading the way, C riders chasing behind, and there are still some ahead, but now we're starting to get this churn. We're getting all riders from all the different ability groups all mixing together. James Ashcroft from No Pins is in this group. Dixon from Portishead CC. We're going to look at some of the names that we've seen at the very front of the races so far in the series. The 6th race, so this is the number 6. We've had 5 races so far. We've started to see some of the main names from A group move towards the top, and now today they're doing the same thing within this race. Budge from Peace Fit Racing, again, been prominent in the races so far. Looking for John Russell. Will he be in this group? He was the one that picked up the win in the sprint on the desert flats of Watopia not so long ago, last week or so. Gall from Cleveland District Wheelers in this front group. There's Russell, Bristol RC, and then Bolton from Bristol South. So you see these are the B riders here, like Bolton. When this front group of A riders swept by them, they were able to make that effort, grab the wheels, and now this is carrying them further through the race. And even they're hoping to hold on all the way to the finish, even if they can only hold on for a section of each. Here we go, back of the group, Bolton having to work super hard, 5 watts per kilo, making a huge effort for a B group rider. If he can make this effort, if he can hang on, if he's fortunate in the way that the climbs come, if he ends up in a position to survive in this group for a long time, he's going to end up coming sweeping past and a whole bunch of riders, and also leaving behind the B group riders that he started with. So these are the first couple of B group riders in this main first pack of A riders, and with the distance ticking down, with about just under 16 kilometres to go, time is going to fly by for this front group because we are moving along fast. Dixon of Portishead CC placed right at the front. Gall of Clevedon, and then Ashcroft, Budge and Russell, as well as Bolton, one of the B group riders, are the local riders that we can see in this main front group of A riders working hard to try and reel all of the riders in. And it shows how hard this race has been. The A group, a whole collection of super strong riders. Theoretically, B group the same, very narrow a power spread. It shows how hard this course has proved to be. It's not just in C group and D group we've had riders spinning in groups going all over the place. A group we're down to probably about kind of 10 to 15 riders, including a couple of B riders, and then all the rest of that A group, all the rest of that B group are now in pieces all the way back on the road. So it's going to be a long, hard race for not only these front groups that we've seen so far, but riders further behind are going to be having a very difficult race as well. Kemp from Westbury Wheelers and is just sitting in front of this A group, and it's going to be a big ask now, but can some of these riders grab these wheels as this rocket of a group, this freight train, comes charging along? Lapped riders as well will start to add to the confusion, so we'll try and keep track of what is going on, but we'll keep our eyes focused on this A group so we don't lose sight of the race with the lapped riders. and we'll try and jump ahead and see if we can identify any of those C or D group riders that are holding on to that lead in front as the distance continues to tick down. We're coming up to 14, just over 14 kilometres to go now, so time is ticking by fast. This A group looking strong, and they are continuing to close in. This A and B group continue to close in on the front of C, and then like I said, we had a few small groups in D spread all over the road, and we'll be interested to see whether any of those riders can hold this group off, and crucially hold these groups off without tripping the power thresholds. Will Budge from Peace Fit Racing tucked in at the back of this group, made a good ride. There's about 8 seconds back to a group of B group riders that have clearly been chasing hard, but aren't quite in the slipstream in this A group, and without the power of those riders driving this pace on, those B group riders a little further back are going to have a tricky time as we drop further back. Let's see what we can see. Catri's Froome District leaders. His C group have just been caught and passed by the leaders. Cummings the same. Katie from Peace Fit Racing is in the same position as well. So these riders were ahead of the main chase, so to speak. Now they're just behind it. Can they hold off many of the riders from further back as Boonen from A403 is reeled in by their group right on that steepest part of the course as they hit this hill? Cruel, because that makes it extra hard as riders like James Ashcroft push the pace on, makes it extra difficult for riders to grab the slipstream in this group, even if it's for a few minutes, to just tow them forward past a few of the riders they were racing earlier. So you've got a bit of fortune in here, depends when you get caught, and also obviously a huge amount of guts and brave riding. Adamson from D group getting swept up by this strung out group of A's, so it's a one long line as the pace is held high by the strongest riders in the A group as they continue to persevere ahead, try and reel in the hares that were sent in front of them. The bloodthirsty hounds indeed. Gall from Cleveland District Road Club, he's been prominent in the front. He was the rider that was led out John Russell in the sprint down in the deserts of Watopia. Jumped a bit early and ended up getting picked up by a couple of other riders, including Russell, for the win. Russell's here sitting near the front, must be confident, having had a good result earlier in the year. Ashcroft put in a great ride in the climbing race on Tuesday. So will the rollers be enough for him to use his climbing strength, or will he have to rely on a sprint, and will it come down to the more powerful riders in this race? Bolton, who was hanging on this group, is now 15 seconds behind. As you can see, he wasn't able to hang on to them all the way, but those minutes that he spent clinging to the coattails of this group, this fast group of A riders, has made a huge difference, and he is now only sitting 12, 13 kilometres from the finish, having sat almost at the very front of this race. So if he can now make a big effort, maybe as the next group of B or A riders comes through, repeat the same trick, and he can continue. Here he is, Bolton. So he's on his own at the moment. He's ended up in front of most of the B group riders, and so he's got a group of B group riders back here with again D group riders, Adamson and Rose from earlier in here. And if he can find a group, Pope, for example, good strong B rider in amongst the C group riders, and he needs to find some other Bs and maybe a couple of As as allies to continue to drive forward, try and make some gaps to the riders chasing behind. Excellent ride by Adamson, and Rose is just sitting in front as well in this group. So these guys are riding really well as we approach the last part of this race. They're still in the mix for some really big points. Like we said, all the points in this race will be in one long standing. So the first rider to cross the line and not get disqualified will score 200 points, then 199, and so on, all the way down to 200th place. So if you're a rider in Rose or Adamson's position, yes, you've been passed by this group with Gall, Ashcroft, Budge and Dixon, as well as Russell, but you're sitting in front of hundreds and hundreds of riders ahead, and even if you end up 50 riders back by the finish, that's still going to score you a whole hatful of points. Here we go, Pilato, the C group riders, Hunt and Pilato, the front of our C group, being reeled in now by this. So they're sitting at the back of this group, making a big effort. Can they make a jump to survive in this group for at least a few minutes, same as we said before with Bolton? Or the A group just going to scythe straight through them? Here we go. Looks like Ashcroft is sitting in the front of this group, Budge is sitting at the back, Russell trying to conserve their energy as best as possible. 26 kilometres done, coming up to 10 kilometres to go, just over 10, it's probably just under 11 kilometres to go. So we're coming towards the final crux of this race for this front group. This is where the balance will start to be struck, because they also want to beat the riders in this group. So they've benefited from having the weight of numbers around them as they reel in Moody from Salt and Sham, and that's what allowed them to make these catches. But now they need the collaboration that we've seen in this pack of 15, 20 riders or so is going to turn from collaboration into competition, and they're going to see if they can fight for the victory, the sprint win, or will someone be able to slip away solo before the finish. One B group rider slipped in there, tucked in near the back, trying to get towed along by this group. So he is making strides forward. It's MacArthur, a Scottish rider, making strides forward in the B classification. He's probably the furthest forward at this point of the B riders. If he can hang on to this group, that will continue, his gap, his lead on the riders behind will continue to expand. Here we go, 10 kilometres to go, 10 kilometres. So that will probably take, what, about 6, maybe even 7 minutes for this front group at the pace they're going. So not long to go. Really quick to that. You can see the groups behind that C group with Pilato and Hunt have gone down to about 18-20 seconds. Broad Drake, one of the D group riders, is mixed in the same part of the field roughly, so 22 seconds now. So you see that gap is rapidly expanding, but the same has been true for all the groups behind. So apart from this front group of A's, we've only got small groups, little clusters of A and B riders. None of them will have the impetus to reel back to this A group, and that probably means that riders like Hunt might be in a position to hold them off. We still haven't seen the very front of the D group riders. There are a couple of riders from D group that were sitting a long way forward, and they haven't been caught yet. So it'll be interesting to see whether the likes of Cross from Portishead can hold off this group all the way to the finish, or whether it is going to be the A's who will not be denied. Cross's teammate Dixon, Portishead CC, riding well here, sitting further forward. We've not seen him so much at the front of the race. We have seen a lot of the other names, Gall, Budge, James Ashcroft, Russell. We've seen those at the front of the race before, but Dixon is sitting pretty at the front, right in the mix on this one. A long, sustained, hard effort, playing with his hands clearly as the A's loom in, reel in another group of C riders. Brown from PDQ is just ahead here. We will have riders, some riders maybe starting to look at like they're getting lapped soon as well, because it's about, like I said, it's just under a 10 kilometre lap, and this front group are going fast enough. Any riders that went out of the back of their groups early on, long, hard ride, they might suddenly find themselves actually a full lap behind this leading group. Same state of affairs for this A group as they tick through the kilometres. Moving along fast. We're coming up to 8 kilometres to go now. Not far to go until riders will really start thinking about that finish. And it'll be interesting to see once this front group comes to the finish. We'll start to have a cast our eyes further back down the group, see if there's any of the names we would have expected to see in the mixes, see how far behind, see whether they just missed the cut just before the catches were made, or whether they ended up going out the back earlier and having a long, hard chase on their own, trying to reel through. Because unfortunately for the A group riders that are travelling faster, they might end up catching large groups of C or B or D riders. But if they're an A rider trying to keep pace with a group like this, a large group of A riders, actually often those earlier groups aren't going to be able to contribute very much because they just won't be travelling as fast. And so if you get an individual A group rider, they're riding on their own for possibly a large chunk of this race, whereas this front group of 10 riders have been able to share load, even though we have attacks flying and it's not necessarily full collaboration. This slipstream effect will just tow this group along and keep it moving forward. And that's where the C and the D and the B group riders that did manage to find themselves in a group right from the very off will have a good chance against the A group riders that have been chasing solo from the very beginning, or chasing with a group of riders also from Group C and Group D who might not be able to contribute to that chase and support with the pursuit. Very impressed by this B group rider MacArthur, still tucked in this group, riding very well. There's a couple of C group riders also making the most of it as well as they move along. We're coming up to 7 kilometres to go now, so ticking along, and there's only a couple of 1s and 2s, small groups of riders ahead. So it does look like that unless there's a hidden group of those D riders that might include Cross or some of the others ahead, this A group are not going to be denied, and it will come down to a fight between A group for the very top spots, and then, as we said, riders that manage to ride well, ride efficiently further down the order. We're not far away now from that little steep climb, like we said, a crucial point in this circuit that might see any final selections that are made, because the rest of this lap gently rolling but flat enough that a lot of these A group riders will be able to hang on to the back of this group. So there's only really one more opportunity for riders that want to split this race, and it comes probably in about 2 or 3 kilometres time as we hit the short steep ramp where we saw that 10% gradient, and then the acceleration over the top as the group strings out. Looking further before, there is Cross. So we've got our final D group rider that we were looking out for. He's sitting about 27, 26 seconds in front of the chasers. like so many breakaways we've seen in the Tour de France, it's been a valiant effort, but 21 seconds might as well be nothing, because I think it will be game over here. That gap is ticking down fast. It's a fantastic effort by Cross. He's managed 31, maybe 31 and a half by the time he's caught kilometres. He's come up only 6 kilometres short from sustaining a long lead from the leading group of 8 riders all the way to the finish. So it's a 37 kilometre race. He might get to 30. In fact, he's holding the gap nicely at 19, 18, 20 seconds. So can he sustain it? Can he hold this gap until maybe 32 kilometres? How far into the race can he get? Will he have the legs to jump onto that A group? That would be an amazing performance if he's got the strength to jump ahead as the A group catches and get towed further along. But here is Cross. He was the furthest forward of the D group riders for the local clubs. Portishead CC, and a huge shout out as we see behind him. There come the A group riders, 4 or 5 seconds behind. It's going to be his teammate, possibly Dixon, who makes the catch himself, as Cross, the final D group rider, is caught by the A group. So now, undeniably, irrefutably, of all the riders in the local clubs, this group of A riders are now the front of the race, and they will be racing for the victory in 5 kilometres time. The points will work, including all the other riders. So if we end up with a rider that's not one from one of the local clubs winning, they will take 200 points, and the best placed rider from the local clubs will take either 199 or 198, depending on where they finish. So it won't just be 200 points for the furthest forward rider from the local clubs, but like we said, we can see there are still C and certainly Wilkes' group of D riders sitting further ahead of this main group of A riders. However, there is a good chance that if riders that have been riding solo for a large chunk of this race might end up getting disqualified. Cross sitting pretty much near the top of what D's group would be riding at, so he has made a big hard effort. We'll see whether he survives the cut of the DQ axe, but there is no such restriction for the A group, so we know for a fact that these riders who are riding in A, assuming that the setup is correct, assuming that they're riding with the correct equipment and they're recording everything as needed, and assuming there's no mishaps, this will be where our leading point scorers come from. Russell sitting near the back of this group, moving up as we start to approach. This is the climb we've been talking about. This is the steep little kick. You've got to be careful not to sit too far back, and then a rider who experienced as Russell is able to slide himself right further forward. He's sitting towards the front group, but now as we hit the climb, he can drop further back, but without the fear of falling out the back of the group. Dixon sitting a little bit further back now, so he's got a couple of B and C riders. He needs to be careful, because if those riders from other groups make those gaps open up, that's where the real danger could be. In fact, one of the A group riders from Spain is sitting just behind the B group rider. He's got 1 second gap, he might be shed, and so we might have one fewer rider to race for here. A couple of small gaps as this group strings out on the descent. Let's see if, first of all, Dixon, but also the rest of the group can remain in contention. And there we go. In fact, the single rider has managed to just about latch back onto the back, and it looks like, as we go under 4 kilometres to go, that this front group is going to be all together and we're going to have a sprint finish. It's more or less, we've got one more little upwards ramp towards the finish, and it's actually mainly a downhill section for the last kilometre or so, last couple of kilometres. So there's going to be a couple of little rollers. It's not complete. There's a little kick up, and then we've got a little bit of a downhill section coming next, a slight net uphill for a couple of kilometres, and then a fast run into the line, and it kicks up slightly before the finish as well. So technical finish, you'll have to time your effort well. Again, with that uphill gradient, it can punish riders that jump too soon. But with a fast run in, it looks very likely that indeed this group are going to come in all together. If you've made it this far in this group, after 40 minutes of racing and 34 kilometres, you are going to be pretty confident of holding into the finish. And now it's all about having to think about what you can do to try and maximise your position and beat these other riders in the sprint finish. Positioning is crucial, especially with the fast downhill run. It's going to be easy to end up going too early, taking too much of the wind, and then getting jumped by riders at the end. But if you start too far back and other riders get the jump on you first, they make their move before you're ready, then you can get left behind and caught on your heels. So, a couple of riders still ahead from B's and C groups, a couple of seconds. But this group are rampaging at over 60 kilometers per hour, so we will be rattling through this distance. It will be upon the finish before we know it. Here comes that final, we're still on the flat section, and like I said, there's one more little uphill ramp coming before we reach the finish, as we have 2.5 kilometers to go. So, last little uphill kick coming now, so a few percentage points, nothing major, nothing that I expect will start to disturb these riders. We've got a small uphill ramp and a slightly more sustained one before we reach the fast downhill run to the line. And they continue to reel in the ones and twos of riders that are ahead. A group of this size, with this power that these riders are showing, are not going to be denied, and there are going to be no prisoners taken as they continue to drive for the finish, coming up to 2 kilometres to go. So most of the climbing behind them. Tough course, really hard race with a rolling course and the groups to chase, and A group clearly set off fast by how small this group has become. It's split apart all over the place, and now as we approach the finish, the selection has been made, and we're going to see who is going to come on top of A group, and then we're going to cast our eyes back to see which riders from groups B, C and D can make the most of the situation with the lead they had to try and reach their highest points score of the season so far. Here's the final ramp up. Riders will have a little bit of climbing to do just before we reach the final kilometre, and then it's the final fast run towards the finish. So a few percentage points. Will this put anybody in difficulty? Will any of you try and take an opportunity with a bit of a gradient? 6-7% briefly, and then it levels off, and one more kick up for this kind of constant climb, and then as we approach 1 kilometre to go, the road levels out and we have a fast run for a sprint finish. A couple of lapped riders in amongst here, so a lot of these riders this group are catching now are actually 1 lap down. But there are still a couple of C group riders. You see JGM, that American rider a little bit further ahead, was on the same lap. So there's a couple of 1s and 2s that have almost held this group off, but cruelly in this final kilometre, it looks like the C group riders, Mascaroni from Italy, for example, are going to get reeled in. Here we go, 1 kilometre to go. It's flat or downhill all the way until the final kick towards the line now. Hard to make a prediction. Russell was very impressive in the sprint finish we had a few weeks ago. Ashcroft, we've seen him race at Oddem. We've seen the sprint he's got for a small young rider. Excellent turn of speed, got very good top end power. Riders like Gall, more of a time trial rider, can sustain the effort well. In fact, you can just see on the profile there, Wilkes from Satonia, looks like he's the furthest forward rider, still pulling huge power numbers, and he's about 1 minute and 25 seconds ahead of this group, but actually beyond that, there's no riders that have managed to hold him off. Mascaroni's the last one, he's 2 seconds ahead, so we're about to catch the very last of the riders apart from Wilkes of Satonia. Again, we've mentioned it with looking at the fact he's still pulling out those numbers, good chance we might end up with a DQ on our books. But here we go, coming up to the sprint finish, 37 kilometres done, last kick up to the line coming ahead. You can see the arch appearing in the corner, it's a slight bend to the left. Who's sitting near the front? We've got the Ashcroft is the furthest forward of the local riders. Then further back, we've got riders like Russell, Gall are sitting near the back of this group. Who's going to make the jump? The front riders have kicked over 10 watts per kilo. Ashcroft is the furthest forward of the local riders. Is he going to be able to hold on? Is anybody come by him? Ashcroft is sitting in the front, and it looks like James Ashcroft, followed by Will Budge. They are the furthest place forward of the local riders. Russell almost caught Budge on the line. Gall was sitting further back. I'm afraid I didn't see Dixon in that group. Apologies for that. And then as we start to cast our eyes back, we've got a few of the lapped riders coming through here. You can see from the distance that riders like Cox have got 27 kilometres done, so they've got 1 lap to go. It's just under 10 kilometres per lap. And as we look further back, let's see if we can find the next riders to finish. Here we go. It's Hunt from Bath CC, so a C group rider sitting far, far, far forward. So he's had a fantastic ride. Will he be able to pick up some really big points as we approach the finish here? We're just looking to keep track here. So it looks like as we work our way down the order, it's going to be Hunt's group are the next group to arrive. Bolton from Bristol South. We saw him hanging on brilliantly in the B group. He's sitting far forward, so he's going to pick up some really great points as well. Hunt from Battersea C group, great ride, and he's ended up riding strong in with this other group of C riders that have managed to do a fantastic job, and they're going to they're 4 seconds behind Bolton as they've got just under a kilometre to go. So Will Bolton, riding his own from B group, managed to stay ahead of this group of C's, and Will Hunt's group continue to secure those big points. Here's Bolton, so he's riding with one other rider from Germany who's from B group. And 2 of them have got about 300 metres to go. They've got a 5-6 second advantage on Hunt's group behind a group of C's from Battersea C. So Bolton, furthest place rider that we've seen that's not from A group, so a fantastic ride. He made an excellent effort to jump in that early part of the race and then tagged onto the A group when they made the catch. So great ride from him. He's coming in to take a very strong position, one of the furthest places forward in B group. And then back we go to the next group. Hunt sprinting in this group for Battersea C. Good strong ride from him again. Got himself in a group in C group early on, rode really nicely. Franklin from Bristol Club, Hugh Gorton, Paul Allen, these riders all B's and A's. So these are the riders that couldn't quite cope with the pace early on, but they've sustained the effort. They've ended up in a group that's been moving fast enough to take them past a lot of the other riders. So Gorton, Allen, Franklin, picking up some solid points for their clubs. Those are Bath CC and Bristol RC, a couple of the clubs right in contention at the very top of the overall standard. Here comes Gorton, just beating his teammate Alan Franklin from Bristol RC, a B Group rider, a little bit further back. As we work further back, here's Palazzo from Bournemouth Jubilee Wheelers. Fantastic ride again, like Hunt from Bath CC, solid C Group ride, got himself in the mix in the front of C Group, and he's ended up reaping the rewards. He's come in strong at the end of this race. Ewan Taylor coming in a group of A team riders with Oscar Hutchings. So these are another group of A riders. Daniel Riggs, a B group rider. Cummings from Salt and Sham, we saw him early on riding well. JG from Bradford-on-Avon, and Barry Pope, we know he's a strong B group rider. You see all these riders, it was super close, seconds in it either way, can cause a huge change of points. Fry from Bristol RC, Chris Dean from Bath CC, more B group riders. Looks like a large chunk of the B group have ended up in this part of the race, mixed in with some of the A groups that weren't quite able to hang on at the very front of their race. Katie from Peter Racing, she was riding super strong early on, so a fantastic result for her, great ride. As we look further back again, Brown from PDQ, he's got 1 lap to go, still a bit further to go. Jenny Hudson from Bristol RC, we know she's a very strong rider, very strong B rider. She's ended up riding on her own here. She's got 8 seconds ahead of a Portishead rider and about 10 seconds to a rider in front. So a strong ride from Jenny Hudson. She's ended up mixed in well in amongst the main B group. And again, if you think about it, we've only probably seen a handful of A group riders. So it looks like some of those A group riders have not been able to make the catch on these B group riders in the front. Coventry from Bradford-on-Avon CC and Roach from Portishead sprinting in behind Hudson here as well. So Hudson does well, picks up the points there. Will this pair catcher, Coventry, it looks like they'll just be behind Hudson. If you look further back, Salmon from Bournemouth Jubilee Wheelers, Spinner from Portishead. Again, more B group riders, a huge chunk of riders coming in all within a few minutes, few seconds of each other. Looks like Salmon and Spinner sprinting hard. It looks like Salmon's going to come in at the front of this one, Spinner a little bit far behind. Russell Peace, another B group rider. Ali Cameron from Bristol RC, good sprinter. She ended up finishing second to Slavin on Tuesday in the women's race. We saw Catry from Freeman District Wheelers coming in there. So again, mixing in, we've got a couple of the strong C riders. Here's some more of the A riders. Downham from Bristol RC, right at the front here. Kevin Thomas from Bradford-on-Avon CC. Joe Taylor from Clevedon. More A group riders that were maybe not quite in the mix of the front of their group. In front of Jason Streether, PDQ B group riders. So this is where we've got a lot of the B and A group riders. Grimshaw from Portishead. Wilkes, I'm pretty sure that's Wilkes the Elder from Satonia. Thompson, PDQ, C Group rider, just behind Wilkes, good ride. And then as we go further, Gorst from Axe Valley Peddlers, Ward from Bristol RC, again, more riders, all A's and B's mixed in together. Russell from PDQ, lots of PDQ riders in this part of the race. Moody from Salt and Sham, we saw him earlier in D Group, but in a great ride to finish in the mix with all these B's and A riders. Excellent work. Marsh from Portishead is 30 seconds further back. So, with another rider from Portishead CC, Arkwright, and then Stimson from Salt and Sham, we saw him in D Group earlier, and then as we go, Jake Godfrey from Bradford-on-Avon, an A Group rider with Edwards, another A Group riders. Those guys have ended up a little bit shuffled further back, Darren Edwards and Godfrey with David Stoyle from Bath CC. So these are A Group riders that have been mixed in just behind that main group of B riders that managed to hang on when the front group of A riders came and dragged the pace along. So Stoyle's in there, Tom Bass as well, Salt and Sham rider, Nopins when he races on the road, Kempe from Bristol South. We've got Adamson, we saw her at the beginning from Bath CC finishing near the front. As we go further back, Price, another Bristol RC rider, Pickering from Bournemouth Jubilee Wheelers, Stuart Gold from Bath CC. More riders, these riders will still be picking up big points. Dauncey, we saw this rider in the mix at the beginning when C Group was the main groups from C were forming. Smith again, we saw Paul Wheelers. When C Group was making the selection, we saw they were, and they're still in a position to pick up points towards the front of this race. Boonen from A403 Rogue as well. Coffey from PDQ, DH from PDQ. These riders are all still comfortably in the front part of this race, still under an hour racing, picking up points left, right and centre. Richard A, Portishead CC. Bradley from Bristol South. We've got a couple of A riders coming in as well. We've got Charlie Revel from Team Tour. Must have had a tough race. Ended up on his own here, 27 seconds behind that group in front, 10 seconds behind more A group and B group riders. Wyatt from Portishead. So Paul Taylor from Clevedon is further back as well. So A group is clearly, there was a fast start and it split that group to pieces on these lumps and bumps on this course. Wyatt, here's Taylor from Clevedon. And these riders, A group riders, have had a punishing day. It's been a tough race. 51 minutes for A group at this point as they approach the finish. Bourne, we saw earlier again, solid ride from D group. Ended up getting right in the mix at the front of D group and before the catches are made, and then the shufflers ended up a bit further back than a couple of his teammates that were in D group, but is riding in well here as well. Is Gooding from Salt and Sham, Buxton we saw earlier in C group come through, and a couple of B group riders again further back. Jones from Bristol RC, about 6 seconds behind Buxton. And then Hill from A403 Rogues, an A group rider. Lauren Booth from PDQ, solid ride by the C group rider, always got a good sprint on her. Gilles from Pack Tri, Portishead Triathlon, again coming in, mixed in a couple of D group riders here as well. Clark from PDQ, so again sitting in front of some riders like Riley from B group, so all over the road here. This has been a really chaotic race. I hope you've been able to follow it. I've had a hard time keeping track of where everyone is. But it's amazing to see so many riders from all the local clubs and teams coming in. They're really committed to this one and they're all spread all over the road. It shows just how hard this race has been. Mottershead from Portsmouth North End, another rider from the south coast, Sartonia. Hart jumps him, a B group rider, the big sprint goes by to pick up a few points. Hughes from Salt and Sham, sitting this a little bit further back, about to launch his sprint as well. C group riders, again, big ass. It was all about finding those big groups early on. Daniels from Pack Tri, a D group rider sitting with another couple of D groups. So these guys have clearly been working together for a large chunk of this race. Even as things start to like Keeble from Portishead being very prominent in the women's races. C group rider looking to reel in those D group riders by the finish if she can. Gordon Richardson from C group, we saw him at the beginning. He's with Helen Coleman here. Karen Spiteri a bit further back as well. These group of C riders again, a group of C riders that managed to coalesce. They've been working together clearly for the last part of this race, and that's allowed them to stay in front, continue to pick up points. We're still within the top 200 riders, so these riders are still racing for points. Wiggins from PDQ and Brooks from Trowbridge CC, Gian Sante from Bath CC launching a big sprint over 10 watts per kilo, so a big kick there, going for the last couple of points on offer. Fletcher from Clevedon, a B group rider. These B group riders have had a hard day, making lots of chases, but maybe without the help that those front groups had when the A's caught them. Scriven from Bournemouth Jubilee Wheelers, Baker from Salt and Sham just in this group as well. Rich Franklin a little bit further back. These D group riders have been racing for over an hour, 1 hour and 6 minutes coming up now, so huge effort. Very hard to sustain the intensity for that duration, especially if you've made that hard start to try and commit to staying away. Franklin, 300 metres to go, sitting at the back of this group, couple of B riders around him. And again, big effort made early. We saw him, he just slipped off the back of the group he was in on that steep climb, and that's one mistake, a little section of the course is enough to really punish a rider, make it difficult for the whole rest of the race. PDQ rider coming in now as well in this group with some C riders as well. Jim Dennis from Salt and Sham in this group. Ridout, we saw him earlier, it's a bit further back. He was in the D group early on. Again, another group of D riders that have ended up working together, and they've got a nice gap to the group behind, so they'll be able to race it out in the sprint finish for their positions. Further back, Bale from Pack Tri. C group coming up to an hour of racing. As these guys approach the finish, they'll be just outside an hour. It's a long, hard race, 37 kilometres, and again, because the groups split up, there was a lot of opportunities to ride fast, but unless you were able to get one of those big groups, these small groups have ended up with a lot of work done on the front. Bale makes the kick, trying to beat the two riders in this group as we head up towards the finish. Rider behind, kicking hard, up to 10 watts per kilo. Look further back, James from Salt and Sham in a group with Claire from Portishead, Philly Gaisford from Battersea Sea, and Reed Bone from Axe Valley Pedallers, and Liz Kemp from West Readers just a few seconds further back. So James and Claire, yes, they'll be looking at each other. They're resting for the sprint below 2 watts per kilo, but they've got to be aware as Claire kicks for the sprint in the last 200 metres, because those riders behind are coming up fast. Will they actually make the catch here? Will this group reel in that pair? Kemp from West Readers, Gaisford is in there. Holly from Axe Valley Pedallers, they're going to be right on their tail if they can. They catch that pair before they get to the line. Holly from Axe Valley Pedallers is back here as well. Gaisford was still in that front group. She's just tagged on the back as we look further back. Holly from AVP just about to launch the sprint. Still got A and B group riders mixed in here. This shows how split up this race has become. It's been all over the road. And as Holly finishes here strong, and as we look further back, let's find the next local rider that's riding. We've got Brown from PDQ. We saw B group rider, got isolated, and now he's having to bring this one in slow. Goosey Carlson from PDQ riding along with Brown as well. So again, we can see the toll this race has had on these riders. So we'll wrap up here as we watch these last couple of riders heading in towards the finish. Fantastic, frenetic, frantic action. I hope you've managed to keep track of it. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for everyone that raced so hard to put on the show for us. I hope you've enjoyed the video run back. I hope it's brought back some of the good memories. Maybe it's brought back some of the pain in your legs as well. We're going to be having a rest week in the next week so that I can catch my breath and we can lay some plans for some more exciting racing in the last 3 weeks of this series. Thank you very much for being involved, and thank you for watching.